Okay, we have a new friend with us, Lillian, or Lil from littlegripes.com. Lil, how you doing?
Hi, Brad. Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Having a great night. Thank you so much for doing this. So I came upon you online. You wrote a great article on your website,
Yeah.
which does a lot of talk about. You sort of right there on the front page. Girls talking superheroes, and you had a fantastic article about gender and race, changing the gender and the racial makeup of comic book characters, but as they're taken to the small screen and big screen. Something that's it's a conversation that's actually come up once or twice briefly on the Cosmic Geppetto podcast, and
Mhm.
it was such a well written article, and you made some good points, and you showed a real good depth of knowledge about the subject. So I was really excited when you agreed to come on the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be on the show. And yeah, I'm ready to get started talking.
Now, where the conversation really had happened before on the podcast was when we were talking
Hmm.
about James Bond, and we went through a long list of possible actors who could be James Bond. And
Right.
one of the people who has been considered a front runner was Idris Elba.
Yeah.
And our panelist Brian brought up, and he wondered if it would be a problem of Elba being Bond, because if Bond is suddenly black, would that add too much different context to the character? And you before we started, you actually made some really good points about that, or your thought process about if you were to have that particular actor taking over the role.
Yeah, I was saying, we were discussing, I was saying that basically, I think the James Bond character is intrinsically British and very posh, very he has a definite swagger, and that's really the the three most defining qualities of who he is, aside from being a badass. But I mean, yeah, like and also obviously physically attractive, which I think Idris, whatever his name is. And so to me, I don't think he would that would disrupt the narrative of who James Bond, or the, who what his identity is. It's as long as the actor that they choose is has that, like, brings that, like, physical, imposing but smooth and suave swagger, and he's actually very British, which Idris is. Like, he's a very British guy. Like, when you hear him speak with his natural accent, and he's done some, very British films too. And so, like, he's known for being British. He, like a lot of the actors that have been previously chosen to be Bond, and I think it wouldn't. It's so. I mean, I've debated this with my friends. And some of them have been against it, and some of them have been for it, for the reason that your friend brought up too. But my personal feeling on it is that it I just, like, it's not about the color, the skin color in this case. It can be for in other cases, but for James Bond, it's not about skin color. It's more about the nationality, the accent, and the attitude of the person.
Yeah, just so much charisma and such a great physical presence.
Yes, that's really, yeah, yeah. That, and all wrapped in one, like, a smooth British package. It's like that's really the only, like, main requisite, other than, being able to, hopefully be a good actor, and, do the stunt sequences and everything. And yeah, so that's, I think he's my prime pick, like, for the next. I hope it's not Tom Hiddleston.
Oh no,
Um,
you don't want Loki?
I don't get, okay, I don't get, just side note, we're talking race and everything, but I don't get why women find him attractive, why some women and some gay guys find him attractive. I was like, when did Loki become like this hot, like hottie property, like, and now being considered to be Bond? I'm like, no. He's like scrawny, and I mean, he kind of buffed up recently because I think he's trying to, like, get by for this role. But yeah, so yeah, I hope Idris gets it, and yeah. But that's
It'd be tough to have Hiddleston follow up Daniel Craig, because Daniel Craig looked
Oh
like
yeah,
such a tough guy.
he definitely gave a more rugged performance than Pierce Brosnan, and then so yeah, to follow, and then because they're both white, British guys, I suppose like Tom following directly following Daniel would draw a more stronger comparison, like would encourage people to compare them more directly than if Idris was to follow Daniel. So it's like, yeah, like I think he would underwhelm like if Tom was to follow Daniel. In my opinion.
Well, talk about who looks like a tough guy. I don't know if you saw this. They just recently had an article I saw on, I think it was USA Today, where Elba is filming a reality show in England, where he is training to do some professional like MMA style fighting.
Oh, I haven't seen that. No. Is this for a
He just wants to do it.
He just wanted to do it though. I think maybe I don't know. Like I don't know how far in the James Bond casting like decision process they are along. Like I don't know if they've already like kind of have a decide. I mean, they probably have a short list, right? But they don't. I don't know if they have any like like maybe they've already chosen and they just
you wonder if everything's done and they just haven't dotted the I's on the contract.
Yeah, exactly. And that sounds suspicious. I mean, not that like a guy can't just do MMA, but
well, he looked amazing. They showed a picture from him on the training, and there he is with his shirt off, and he's a good looking guy and he's an imposing figure, but he is obviously training up to get in shape for it. And I was like, wow, that's a guy that if you believe him, kicking around everybody.
Right. And and between that and the Thor movies, which he's been in, and he's gonna be in it, the next Thor movie I think is in 2018, but that was another one of the casting race changes I mentioned in my article was how they cast a Valkyrie, who's a major love interest of Thor's in the comics, and she's obviously the whole world of Thor in the Marvel universe is in the Marvel comics it's not actually Norse, and like it's not Scandinavian actually, but it's still based on Norse mythology. So you think blonde people, you think like very like Scandinavian blue-eye blondes and fair skin. The guy they cast to play Thor is perfect. Like you think like, wow, that is Thor, like he was born to be like but and then so for them to cast like Valkyrie, who's supposed to be this Norse demi-goddess, and like the Valkyries are a real a huge part of the actual Norse mythology, and for them to cast an African American actress as a Valkyrie it's a pretty huge, like pretty bold step. Like I mean, the movie's still a little far a ways off, so I bet like there'll be more to say about that as the dialogue gets closer. But I think it's just funny to me like how when I heard that casting decision, I was like, that's really, why aren't people celebrating? I was like, you hear all this time like people talking about like, oh, they're whitewashing this character, like Scarlett Johansson's playing that anime, like this anime Japanese character in the live action movie, and and there was a huge like a backlash against that in Hollywood, especially from Asian American actors like George Takei, and you hear about stuff like that all the time, especially on Twitter and stuff, and you just never hear about any of the positives that have like happened, like any of the positive progressive castings, like, but they do happen like all the time, which is what my article really tries to prove, that like minority populations are being represented actually pretty generously in contrast to the actual percentage of the population that they inhabit. So I think it's just a matter, progress is happening. It comes with increase in population. It's happening. It shouldn't be forced, like we saw with gender in Ghostbusters, that it really didn't pan out well. The reception, I think, and not only was it, I think, critically just a bad movie, because it seemed to be made with the only Ghostbusters scene, basically. Like it was like one of the few movies you ever seen that's basically it was made to push an agenda forward, and which was, there was no real villain, there was no real like story. It was just, it felt like they were just saying, look, we're going, look at this gimmick, we're going to change men to women, and that's it. And so it should be more, you know, in the context of the story. And but it is happening, like so yeah, like I just think that when things like race changes, whether it's black to, whether it's white to black, whether it's whatever, when it does happen, I mean, you know, you have to take time to also celebrate that in on social media. And I mean, it's the internet, it's going to be really, really negative either way, but it's gonna be always focused more on the negative. So what are you gonna do?
Right. Well, you know, the Thor movies have sort of under the radar done some good work with that, where you had Idris Elba playing Hemdall, who's a character who was always white in the comics, and you also had one of the Warriors 3 was Asian.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Was he? I actually, because I'm not familiar with Thor comics. Was there an Asian character in the Thor comics? I don't.
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah. See, my background is I grew up not reading comics, and then I became fascinated when I was like around like 10 years old with Xena Warrior Princess. That, do you remember that TV show? I mean,
remember.
everyone obviously remembers that. It was iconic. And for me though, that's really what got me into this whole like world of geek culture and superheroes, and just I have fantasy and sci-fi. And I really, so now what I like to do is I relate more to live action. So what I like to do is I see that a live action movie or TV show is coming out, and then I go back and do a lot of research on the comics or whatever source material that came to be before it. And so that's how I'm kind of actually learning a lot about the comics in reverse, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, comics were so predominantly, the characters in comics were so predominantly white. And sadly, when, especially in the 40s and 50s, when there would be an Asian character or a black character, they were terrible.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Just the worst possible stereotypes. You know, black characters basically being pretty much portrayed as the worst blackface you could imagine.
Yeah.
And
can you think of an example, like off the top of your head? Because I mean, obviously, I can't. I can't.
Are you familiar with the comic there was a movie, gosh, it's probably about 10, 15 years old, called oh no, pardon me, The Spirit, which was made into The Spirit. It was made into a movie maybe 10 years ago, directed by Frank Miller. Scarlett Johansson and Samuel L. Jackson were actually bad guys in that movie.
Yes, I do actually. Yeah, it came out around. Yeah, I do. It was like kind of Sin City-esque in the style, and right, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a very, very it was a beloved comic from the 50s, 60s, written and drawn by, I want to say, Will Eisner. And they had a character, I want to say his name was Boxcar, and it was just terrible. It was, again, drawn in the aspect of blackface, and he was the cowardly sidekick who would speak in, you know, the most horrible racist idea of Amos and Andy style dialogue. And as they've tried to bring that character back every now and then, bring the Spirit back, and they've had to do a lot of backing up to make that character less of a horrible stereotype.
Who played him in The Spirit? Because
they didn't even have him in the movie. I think it was such a toxic concept.
Yeah, I guess especially nowadays, they definitely wouldn't. They just want to dissociate themselves. Yeah, I mean, back then it's like comics and movies both, like including like the character that Mickey Rooney played. That's because I always get him confused. I don't know why with him in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Like he played a Asian guy, a Japanese guy in Breakfast at Tiffany's. And that was a horrible stereotype. And it just yeah, it was like making fun of Asians to make fun of Asians, and at the time, and I understood why back then, like a lot of these media watchdog groups that, which is such a silly idea to me nowadays, but back then I feel like maybe, you know, like they were definitely probably necessary back then, and they were good for progress. And but nowadays it seems like we have gotten to a point where it's I'm not gonna say like we're post racism, obviously not, but it's more to a point where we have to start looking at it from a less victimization like point of view. It's not about anymore. I mean, we do have a black president, and we do, and I know that that doesn't represent you know, it's not a cure all to all problems, but it we have to like step back and like not say, you know, like these media watchdog groups are saying, you know, Tilda Swinton, for example, like it feels like they just want to complain for the sake of complaining at this point in time. Back then in the 50s, and yeah, I'm sure like they were valid, legitimate. They had legitimate causes and to fight for, and it was a great cause. And but nowadays it's like when Tilda Swinton got cast as the ancient one, and you know he's in the comics, this old Asian guy. I guarantee you, if they had cast an old Asian guy as an old Asian guy in this Doctor Strange movie, there would have been so much backlash from Asian media, watchdog, whatever groups, that about how stereotypical he was. Why does he have to have this like mustache? Like because
Oh,
in the
you know he'd have
comics,
the mustache.
in the comics, he has that stereotypical like Asian beard, like mystic beard, old Asian guy beard, and then you know, like if they portray him the way he exactly looked in the comics, they would have complained way harder about, oh my god, you're being racist to Asians because why does he have to look so Asian? And it's just, it feels like almost like you can't win now with the people who are complaining. Not that everyone is, but it's, and again, it doesn't represent all of America. It's just the most vocal groups. But yeah, so I just wanted to put some perspective into it when I wrote my article. Like it's so yeah, I mean, I think the fact that they cast a woman as a very powerful male figure from the comics, that could be seen as progress itself. I mean, it's up to, you know, it's very subjective what's progress, like, and it shifts with your with the context of the times. But
well, it's also sort of overlooked, and you know, not that everything's equals out, but you know, they were trying to be colorblind with the casting because the villain in that movie, or another character in that movie, Mordo, who's always been portrayed in the comics as a white character, is going to be portrayed by Chiwetel Ejiofor, who's a fantastic African American actor. And
yes, he is. Yeah, I've seen 12 Years a Slave, and he was great in that. And yeah, he. I only yeah omitted him because I didn't want to
double down in the
on
same
my
movie.
list. But yeah, but basically, I mean, there've been a lot, like all the movies I bring up on my list, like Doctor Strange, and in Valkyrie, there's both Idris and the Valkyrie character, Heimdall and Valkyrie. They're both, you know, race swaps. I mean, all these like shows, and the Spider-Man, the biggest one of all, Mary Jane. There's going to be a lot of major side characters that are going to be portrayed as non-white as they classically were. So it's like it's not just like, you know, the 15 examples that I gave like specifically. It's everywhere, like in these movies and TV shows. It's pervasive, like right now in our culture. And yeah, I think, you know, some people bring up the point, why don't you just create new characters for you know, people of color to play, and or women to play, or people like you know, different sexual orientations to play. And you could, and I think that's a good point too. I think it's just a matter of, you know, I get on one hand why people like want to see themselves represented, like the face they see in the mirror, they want that face affiliated with like a beloved character that they grew up with, like Superman, and they don't want a new character that's, you know, invented just for them. It feels like, you know, like they want to be able to like project themselves onto Superman when they see him. And I get that. Like we all want to see ourselves acknowledged. But on the other hand, though, it's like you said, it really comes into, it's really just a matter of well, will this disrupt the narrative? Will this disrupt the actual story and the essence of the character? And with James Bond, I don't think it will. I think it's a beloved character that could easily be but black, as long as he's British. He could be black, he could be Indian, he could be anything, as long as he's just very British in essence. And that's really, yeah, that's like the crux of the matter.
Now, you mentioned the casting. What's the actress name who's going to be Mary Jane in the new Spider-Man movie?
Zendaya, yeah, she's from Disney. She comes from a Disney show. And she's
Now,
yeah.
that sort of seemed to be the casting. Was that the catalyst for you writing this article? Because it seemed like that
It
came out pretty
was.
quickly after.
It was like, yeah, I had it brewing in the back of my mind for a while, because I mean, these discussions have been happening with me and my friends for a while, and everywhere, you know, on the internet for a while. But when that casting, like, it took over dinner, it took over Twitter completely. It was I just went on Twitter, and it was like Mary Jane, Mary Jane, Mary Jane in the trending like section. And it seemed like and obviously it was very polarizing. Some people have very strong things to say, both for it and against it. And me, I mean, I'm just like, you know, like I personally am indifferent as to whether like Mary Jane, I mean, it's a momentous though casting. Like, I personally am indifferent, just because I was never personally that big a Spider-Man fan. But I know that a lot of people love Spider-Man and Mary Jane specifically, so I think they get attached to the image they have of her from the comics, and that they implanted that image in their own minds too. So they're gonna have a hard time adjusting to, um, you know, like I mean, I think she's gonna dye her hair red though, like, and
Mhm.
she's I don't think they're gonna try to like literally whitewash her. Like, they're not gonna, like, you know, like make her, give her like contact lenses or anything to make her look whiter. But she's I think she's gonna have that like red hair and that personality that you associate with Mary Jane, which is like very feisty and very vocal. And so I think that's, you know, again, whether, I mean, I'm not that big a Spider-Man comics reader, so I'm not as emotionally attached as some of these fans that will be going to see the movie. But my
Well,
opinion.
I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. That was actually the character that got me into comics. And when I started reading it was right when the relationship between Peter Parker and Mary Jane was heating up to the point where they eventually got married.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm very invested in the character, and I don't know Zendaya. I'm butchering the name, I'm sure. I don't know that actress very well. However, from what little I've seen, and just even from the still photos and what they've shown, she just has so much, uh, just so much sex appeal and so much
Oh yeah.
oomph.
She's beautiful. She's very in your face. Like, she's an exceptionally pretty girl, and she definitely has a, like, she's not bland. Like, she has that also. Mary Jane is a model, like, in the comics. And no, I mean, I think Kirsten Dunst did a great job as her, actually. But Kirsten Dunst, even though she's 5'8" or something, I can't see her as a model. Like Zendaya is really, like, just naturally this tall and skinny framed girl, and she has that very, like, unique, like, look on her face that it's really hot with the modeling industry. And I think she really looks like she would actually, you know, be someone in that universe who would be sought out as a model. And aside from that, yeah, like, her looks wise, I think, you know, like, she's totally, I don't know if they're gonna, like, she might even look a little too old, is the only problem I might have with that. I guess they can work with that. They can make her look younger. They can, you know, do whatever with her looks to make her. Tom Holland, it seems to be, even for his age, like, still younger on the young side. So I don't know how old actually this Spider-Man is actually going to be. Do you? In
He's
the
it's At
Homecoming.
least in the first movie, he will be a high school character. Even the
Yeah,
first movie is called Homecoming because I believe like the big showdown is going to be at like the homecoming dance or something along those lines.
yeah. So he'll be at least a freshman, and but or maybe I don't know. Actually, Homecoming's
It could be
um
15, 16.
15. Yeah, maybe he might be a junior in high school. So yeah, I mean she's a teenager herself, I think, in real life. So I think they may be the same age. She just looks a little more mature than the Tom Holland actor. Um, but yeah, like I think maybe her Disney appeal too, like has to do with why they cast her too, because this is like the first time we're seeing him as an actually teenage Peter Parker. I mean, Tobey Maguire has a boyish look to him, but he, you saw him as an adult playing a teenager, and same with Andrew Garfield. You didn't really see them as young teenagers, and for the first time, both Mary Jane and Peter Parker are going to be like they're going to look and feel like actual teenagers, and falling in maybe puppy love, like it's going to be more a puppy love dynamic, and it's going to feel more authentic that way because she's carrying that over from Disney. So I don't know. That might be why a huge factor into her casting as well. But yeah.
Now, is there a case of um, changing of the race or changing a gender that has been done in one of these movies so far that you have thought didn't work?
Uh, yeah. Um. Well, you go first, because I'm trying to. I have a few in back of my head that I'm trying to think. Like, what do you have any off the top of your head? Because I do, but I'm trying to.
It's tough with the new Fantastic Four, where what was it, Michael B. Jordan, who's a very, very good actor, was
Oh,
cast as
right.
Johnny
Yes, we were
Storm.
talking about Johnny
And
Storm.
I thought he was fine. I thought he was a good actor, and he seemed to be, actually, I thought one of the actors who did one of the better jobs, but it was distracting where having his sister was Caucasian, he was
Yeah.
black, their father, and it became a thing where, okay, when are they going to address this? When are they going to address this? Then of course it was all sort of derailed because it wasn't a very good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a that was a strange. I mean, you felt a lot was left on the editing floor, like with that movie, or for whatever. I don't know why. I mean, they should just make movies like 3 hours long by now. I mean, everyone's used to watching like 3 hour long movies, so I feel like that movie really suffered from editing. And I know. I mean, when I first even just heard of like the fact that it was going to be this black family who adopts a white daughter, I was like, that's not really common. I mean, not that it can't happen, and it's great, but that seems a little forced. And it does take you out of the story just even knowing that a little bit. But actually, speaking of Fantastic Four, though, that did bring to mind Jessica Alba as Sue Storm in the previous reboot of that series franchise. I mean, I know that they gave her contact lenses, which just made it worse. Or like, I mean, I had no problem really with the fact that it was a Mexican, half Mexican actress playing her, but it was more the fact that she just didn't, like, the fact that they even gave her contact lenses. She didn't look like she was a natural blonde. She didn't look like she was. They might as well just have left her with her natural hair color if they were going to cast her Sue Storm. It's like, why even bother giving her that fake dye job and fake contact lenses? And it's like really, you couldn't have found just either a naturally blonde actress, or just cast Jessica and let her look like herself as Sue Storm.
Yeah,
um,
we actually talked about that. We had a long discussion early in the run of this show where we had it ended up being 2 episodes where it was fixing the Fantastic Four film franchise, where we had 2 episodes just talking about how bad they messed things up. And
yeah.
the whitewashing of Jessica Alba came up because Jessica Alba is just a stunning actress with this great screen presence and this, just wonderful ethnicity that just really pops on screen. And what's the point of casting Jessica Alba if you sort of take away so much of what makes her interesting?
Great point. Yeah, exactly. It's that really that was really what that's like the most major example I can think of top of my head that it befuddled me. Like I didn't understand why they would just cast this super exotic and beautiful woman just to make her this really all American, like who's like, and that's what Sue Storm is known for, being like she's all American. She's very like she's supposed to look like a corn-fed white Midwestern kind of girl. I mean, that's just who she is. And yeah, that was just a weird decision. And then to have her, just the contact lenses were so fake. I couldn't get over, like, the whole movie. Every time she was on screen, I was like, she does not have blue eyes. It's like it really took me out of it. I mean, and but Chris Evans did a good job. It worked out well for him with Captain America. Thank God he got a second chance. That was a disaster, though. That franchise.
Yeah, well, it was, and there's another one we've talked before where, and I love the Captain America movies, and I'm so impressed that Chris Evans' performance from Johnny Storm, who was this happy-go-lucky, fun-loving guy, to Captain America, who's this weight of the world type character, and he does both so well.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Chris Evans just seems like a solid dude. Like, he seems like he has that, like, intrinsically, like, you feel like the actor himself is just intrinsically good, the way Captain America is. Like, he's good at playing that, like, like you don't roll your eyes when he's like giving this like like go gung ho like speech, and you don't really, a lot of actors you would like when Captain America's giving this big speech about this is freedom and this is I mean that's what Captain does. Like he gives speeches and like these big speeches, and he galvanizes his troops. And when Chris Evans does it, yeah, he really pulls that like the gun ho-ness, all of it like off. Like he's yeah. So I think yeah, I lost my initial point there. Well, it's but yeah. So I think with Chris Evans, try to follow my train of thought. Oh, Chris Evans, Captain America. This is my point. Sam Wilson, the Falcon. What would you think if they decided? Because it sounds like Chris Evans is gonna retire as Captain America in upcoming Marvel movies. I don't know how far off in the future this is, but it seems like he's already like done with his deal. Like he's signed a certain finite amount of deals, and then someone else is gonna take over as Cap, and it's either gonna be Bucky, played by Sebastian Stan, or the Winter Soldier, or Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie, an African American actor, who's great. And I think both those side characters are beloved by fans, like both on screen and in the comics. So in terms of likability, that wouldn't be a problem. But do you think like I know they already made Captain America like a black guy in the comics too, but in terms of live action, it's going to be it's a whole like another platform. I mean, like do you think America's ready for a black Captain America on the big screen?
What's funny is 10 years ago when they were first talking about doing a Captain America movie, and I had a blog at that point, and I actually talked about who I thought could do the role. And the person who I thought would make a great Captain America then was Will Smith.
I can see that.
Yeah. He would have been fantastic. And there was actually a little bit of precedent because in the comics, they actually had a story called, it was a mini series, and they actually talked about how before Steve Rogers became Captain America, they actually did an experiment on an African American soldier, the same treatment that turned Cap into Cap.
Right. I remember this. Yeah.
And it made sense because there was something that experimental, and they think they used the Tuskegee Airmen and the experimentation that went on there in real life as an example. It's like you wouldn't just first go with, sadly, the way the country was. The first thing they would try to do was try something that dangerous with an African American soldier. And I thought it could have been an interesting story. So I would like, on one hand, I would like to see the Falcon, the idea of like him being the sidekick, stepping forward and becoming Captain America and proving that he's ready to take the next step. On the other hand, Bucky, Winter Soldier, also has in the past been Captain America for a period of time.
Yeah, he already has been. Yeah, that's true.
And there's something interesting to that because with Falcon, it's the sidekick becomes the guy. With if it was Winter Soldier, it would be a guy with so much, to use borrow a term that's used with Black Widow, so much red in his ledger, someone who has so much bad stuff in his background, having the chance to be the ultimate good guy and to try to atone for his sins. I think both could be interesting stories. I think Mackie, the actor who plays Falcon, is really a great actor. Sebastian Stan's a very good actor too, but I think Mackie is just really a great actor. So it'd be sort of fun to see him own the movie.
Yeah, he has so much charisma. Like he in the Winter Soldier, when we first meet his character, it's like, I think he was the opening shot. Like he and Steve Rogers like jogging alongside each other, and immediately you felt that bromance spark, and you felt that charisma, and it was obviously coming off both Evans and Mackie. Like you felt, you knew that, okay, this is a guy you could see him potentially carrying a movie of his own, and like a huge blockbuster of his own. And but that's funny that you mentioned. I thought of Will Smith as Captain America, but he apparently was the best part. I haven't seen Suicide Squad, but apparently he was the best part of it because of his acting chops, I guess, or his charisma. But whatever reason, he was like the only good part of it, according to a lot of people. So if they had to do it, I could see them going with I could see them going with Will Smith, or like a more popular choice than Mackie, potentially, if they don't think Mackie's like right in terms of popularity, like name recognition, ready to carry a movie. But it would obviously make more sense story-wise in the MCU for Falcon to inherit the shield.
And you can always sort of get around the fact that he doesn't have the big enough name if you just get a big enough actor to play the bad guy. If you have Mackie as Captain America and then have, I don't know, The Rock as the villain, or like a big actor. Because heck, that's what they did with the original Superman movies, where Christopher Reeves was a nobody, but they got Gene Hackman and Marlon Brando to be the names for that
Even
first movie.
Even with Brandon Routh, the Brandon Routh Superman, they got Kevin Spacey to be Lex Luthor. And Brandon, I feel bad for Brandon. I know he's on the CW as the Atom, and he's doing great on there, but I feel like he got, just as a aside, I feel he got shorted. Like, I feel bad because he did his job well as Superman. It wasn't his fault. The movie sucked.
Yeah, it was an impossible role. It's like you're basically doing Christopher Reeve's Superman movie. You're not Christopher Reeve. He did, and Superman's a tough role because you're just a really, really good guy, and it can be hard to make that interesting.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people. Obviously Christopher Reeves is still a lot of people's favorite Superman. And I would agree with that, actually. I don't think I don't think they've even given Henry Cavill a chance yet to flex his acting chops, like, really, if he had them. Like, we haven't even been given a chance to see that yet. Like, in the last Superman and Batman movie, it was really Affleck's acting that like kept the movie, the theatrical version at least, from being a total disaster, and Wonder Woman too. But acting wise, it was like Affleck's Bruce Wayne was so good that it overshadowed like Cavill's acting completely as Clark Kent and Superman.
Well, he was barely Clark Kent, and Cavill's played Superman in 2 movies, and he's barely been Clark Kent at all. It's just been a lot of Superman. You don't have that dichotomy of the mousy Clark Kent versus the confident Superman, and it limits his abilities.
he didn't seem like he was on screen that much until like the second and third act and that's it was always as Superman. You're right. And the Blu-ray version, the extended version, you got to see more of him doing his journalisting, like around sniffing around, trying to find out what's going on in Gotham with Batman, as Clark Kent. And Zack Snyder's like misusing, I feel the Clark Kent character at least. I think his look is great. Cavill looks like Superman. You go, that's Superman, and as Superman, he's like, he's serviceable. He's but you need a lot of, like you have like Lawrence Fishburne, you have Amy Adams, you need to have a lot of other like award-winning actors around him to like keep the focus from being on him all the time in terms of like, can this guy actually act? And but I don't know, because we haven't seen it yet. I'm not dissing Henry. It's just a matter of like I watched The Tudors, and he was on that. He was very likable in that. I just don't know if he can do drama as do the role as a serious drama the way Affleck has handled his Bruce Wayne so far, which he's my favorite Bruce Wayne so far. I think Affleck, like even more than Keaton, more than Bale. Affleck is he's been my like as Bruce Wayne. His Batman is kind of forgettable because he's in that mech suit where it just hides all expression, and just like you see him like just tumbling, like he's like struggling to get up all the time, and like it's like you barely see any of him, and he gets lost in the voice too. And but in terms of Bruce Wayne, like he's really like this grislier, older Bruce Wayne is totally great. Like I love it. I much prefer to like the super suave like Playboy version of him.
No, it was and everyone was so surprised because when he got cast, people
everyone's like, no,
furious.
Because Daredevil, I mean, especially because of Daredevil, that was a mitigated disaster. But I mean, actually, though, if you watch the director's cut, again, this is another problem with these movies. I don't understand sometimes why. I guess it's more about the studios fighting with the directors for what gets left on the editing floor. But the director's cut of Daredevil, the one with Ben Affleck, is actually a very good comic book movie. Like, the sequences in it look like they were ripped right out of the comics. I mean, and it was also very enjoyable. Affleck was great, very likable as Matt Murdock, and Jennifer Garner was great, even though she didn't look like Elektra really. She didn't look Greek to me. But she's beautiful. I mean, she has a screen presence for sure, and she can do the physicality of the role. But that movie again, I don't know why it was cut to the point where it became bad, like theatrically, versus the director's cut, which was like it raised the movie from like a C to a B+, I would say.
That's not the first time I've heard that. The director's cut was much better, and the movie. It definitely does feel a little bit like a product of its time because they had a lot of Matrix-y fight scenes because every movie did then.
Yeah.
But Colin Farrell was fantastic as Bullseye.
Oh yeah, no, he was I almost forgot how, I guess because recently, I mean, you probably watched the Netflix Daredevil series, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like Vincent, how do you pronounce his name? Vincent D'Onofrio?
D'Onofrio, yes.
D'Onofrio. His Kingpin has just overshadowed. I forgot completely that Michael Clarke Duncan played. That Kingpin was even in the Affleck Daredevil. I just remember Colin Farrell being the villain, one of the villains in it. But yeah, they really when Vincent did such. I think he's doing such an amazing job. I mean, the Defenders. I can't Like Netflix is raising their prices, and I'm just like, you can take my money. Like you guys are doing God's work. Like it's their original content is in like you can't surpass it. It's like they have all this time to do the production and to plan out all the all the steps forward ahead of time, and so I think that's why they're really killing it in the episode to episode like department.
Sounds great. So to go back to the original article, what would you think is the case of gender switching or race switching in a comic book property that has worked the best?
Geez, that's a in recent memory. I'm trying to think. I think the best. I mean, there's a bunch. In recent memory, I think it's not a matter of working the best, but I brought this up in my article. I think it's amazing how how just fluidly Lucy Liu took over the John Watson character. I mean, as a double identity switch. Like, I mean, she's a woman instead of a man, and I feel like they still have that. She as Watson and Sherlock, Johnny Lee Miller as Sherlock, still have that same chemistry as they would if she were a man playing that role. So it's not a matter of like they whitewashed her. Just I feel like they really seamlessly worked her, like the identity that she's a woman very well. They intertwined that very well with this original storyline that came up for the TV series of Elementary on CBS. But yeah, like that's a pretty big change. Like, I mean, it's a huge change. Like, Watson is historically, always been white, always been British, just a British doctor in the army, and he comes home from war, and he goes off with Sherlock and to be his apprentice kind of and slash best friend. And so they always have this almost sometimes homoerotic, but mostly for most part, like they just have this adorable like romantic relationship. And she and Johnny Lee Miller still managed to like preserve that like tension without it being too much about like the fact that she's a woman, he's a man, and will they, won't they. I mean, there is always going to be that dynamic, but it's not as emphasized as if you would imagine. Like if you if you had pitched the idea to me and I were the studio head at CBS, I would have been like, what? No, people are not ready for this, for like Watson to be an Asian woman. Like it's gonna be, like people are gonna be like balking because Sherlock is such a huge part of Western canon. But that was I would say that's a penultimate example when What about for you?
Well, I agree. That's a really good example. And I was so relieved when they didn't turn it into like some weird romantic comedy, wondering when they were going to get together. They've really been able to avoid that, because that would have been disastrous. And romantic interest was never really a part of Sherlock in the original story. So I was glad that they didn't try to turn him into too much of a romantic lead pining for her or any other woman. So they did a really good job with that. I very much... And there was a little bit of precedent for it but I thought Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury was such good casting. And, Nick Fury in the comics was a character that had been for 50, 60 years, always Caucasian. In fact, they had made a TV movie with David Hasselhoff playing Nick.
Yes, I brought that up in the art. Yeah, I think that's a little known part of David Hasselhoff's career, but yeah, in 1998 there was a Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, it was terrible.
I didn't watch it, but yeah.
It was so bad. Written by one of the same guys who was one of the writers for the Batman Christian Bale movies.
Oh, that's weird. But yeah, like it was. I mean, it looked. I mean, I did some research on it. It looked like it was just. Yeah, it was him. It was. It's kind of like. It looked like a kind of Agents of Shield style procedural kind of. Like it looked like a precursor, like kind of a precedent to Agents of Shield, which is on now. But yeah, like I don't know how well, like, did you watch the show? Like, was David Hasselhoff convincing as a Nick Fury type?
No, he was terrible. He was terrible.
Yeah.
It was David Hasselhoff, who was not a very good actor, doing his best Gravel Void tough guy thing, and it wasn't
Yeah.
convincing at all. And it was just a really cheap, stupid looking movie. It was a TV movie. It was really bad. But yeah, and there was an alternate universe version of Marvel called the Ultimate Universe, where they had an African American Nick Fury, and that's sort of where I think the idea came from. And then when they cast Samuel L. Jackson, having him Nick Fury, and everyone was so excited when at the end of Iron Man, when all of a sudden there's Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury, completely stunned everybody, and there was no backlash. There was nobody was upset. Everyone was just really excited. It was, and he's been so good in that role. That was a great piece of casting.
Yeah, that was. I mean, yeah. Now I mean, he's always everywhere. Like he works a lot, but it's so funny how, yeah, like to this day he has done so many iconic roles. And Nick Fury, even this late in his career, you can count him as one of them. I mean, he's really brought something that could have been a forgettable character to the forefront of all these movies, in which all you have big stars all the time, like in these movies, and he manages to not get lost in the. I mean, that's Samuel Jackson. I mean, you cast him, and he's not going to be forgotten.
No,
And
no, it
he's not going to
won't.
be lost in the shuffle. I mean, I guess, yeah, I remember they in the Ultimate the comics version, didn't he say that if someone was going to play me in the movie, I wanted to be motherfucking Sam Jackson or something? Didn't the character himself say that? Like
Yeah, the character said that, and actually the artists who created the Ultimate Universe version, I think they even contacted Samuel L. Jackson and asked if it was okay to use his likeness for the character.
yeah, I've seen the artwork and then I went back and like actually I got my hands on a copy of that, and I was looked at it. I was like, wow, that's. I see. Yeah, I would not have known that, because I always thought of the little that I did know of Nick Fury going, watching these Marvel movies. Like the little I knew of him from the comics was that he was just a white guy, and so I didn't know that there was an Ultimate version. And then doing some research in the past, I found that out, and I was like, that's really I mean, that's really cool. I guess he's playing an original, so he's playing an original character. It's not really a swap per se, but yeah, it's still. I guess maybe that's why the fans didn't really backlash, because he was already his own man in the comics, and it's Sam Jackson. He's kind of playing himself to a heightened degree.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, very good. So, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and about your website.
Well, my website basically was founded, it started off as a hobby, and then it became, a blog hobby, and then it became this thing where I started writing a lot about stuff that I love, and the stuff that I love is comic books, based movies and TV shows. But at the same time, I also would write these articles about fashion and beauty and products, and which I love in equal measure. And then my friend really posed the question to me, which like, you really should focus on one or the other. And so I decided to focus on the comics, but I decided to like have a girl centric. It sounds a little hammy, but yeah, like it is a girl, essentially a very girly, girl centric like a viewpoint of the comics, because like I said, I didn't grow up reading any comics at all, like, and so it's like I'm learning how to be a comics geek in reverse, which I'm very happy to do. Like, I'm very happy to be part of like geek culture, and like like I'm happy that someone like you picked up my piece and invited me on your show, and it's like it's really gratifying for littlegripes.com to be a part of this dialogue, because I guess I am trying to do something original. I bring like a because I guess the normal average girl, I mean, I don't do statistics, but like I don't think the average girl was like as into fashion and the latest trends in beauty and fashion would be also this big a nerd about comics and who Nick Fury is and the ultimate version of Nick Fury, and and know all this random factoids. And so yeah, like I enjoy talking like a lot online, because a lot of my girlfriends obviously aren't they don't know anything I'm talking about. If I bring this up with them, I have to talk about the stuff with my like guy friends and people that I come across online. So yeah, so it was basically a way for me to just meet fellow nerds, I guess, and connect with them. So yeah, that's the story of how Little Gripes came to be, and we'll see. I mean, it's pretty in its infancy stage. It's still a year old, and we'll I'm working on the vlogging version of it. It's really a matter of like like I guess what audiences should I really work on attracting right now, and like I just whoever comes is really who I want to, like whoever comes is my audience. Like I just want to target whoever is actually interested in what I'm writing. I don't want to like write for people that write for a specific group that I don't, on a topic that I don't care about. So yeah.
Nice. Well, it's a very well put together site. You're a good writer.
Thank you.
Really enjoy the stuff. It's a nice looking site. And we really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Will you come back?
Yes, I would love to. Yeah, do this more. I love rambling on about stuff, especially about superheroes. So anytime, I'm open to, just talking and shooting the ish.
Sounds great. Well, we will definitely have you back. We recommend everyone check out www.littlegripes.com. We'll post a link to your site on our site. Will, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. And have a good night.